This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence. Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you all the books I want to read before the end of 2022. I cannot believe it's already October, and I know we all do this every single year. We get to this point in the year and we're like, oh my god, where did the year go? But where did it go? I am filming this video about the books I want to squeeze in right before the end of this year. I have 12 books that I want to speak about today, all of varying genres and styles. And without further ado, let's jump straight into the video. These are the books that I really want to read before the end of 2022. Kicking it off with the very first one, and this is... I almost said Jonathan Strange then. It's not. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is a gothic classic that I have been wanting to read since maybe 2016. To be honest with you, I'm a little bit embarrassed that I love the gothic genre as much as I do, but have not read this book yet. Like, this is such a significant book. If you're not familiar with the tale of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it is a story about a man with a split personality. I feel like that's not a spoiler. I feel like everyone knows. Set in the grimy streets of Victorian London, this tale of murder, split personality, and dark science with its chilling revelation became an instant horror classic back in 1886. It has been on my list for such a long time. I think it's the perfect book to read around the spooky season, and I'm very excited to finally pick it up. Fingers crossed I can do that before the end of this year. The second book on my list is A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. You might have seen this if you've watched maybe a few of my recent vlogs. This has been sitting on my desk for the last month, but I still haven't gotten around to reading the first book. I've started it, I've read a very small amount, but I really desperately want to read the first book in this 4-book series before the end of this year. A Wizard of Earthsea is a fantasy classic that's really well known. Ursula K. Le Guin is super well respected within the fantasy genre, and this is a story about a young man whose name is Ged. I almost said Jed then, I'm pretty sure his name is Ged, and he is a goat herd on a rural farm in a village in this magical secondary world, and he essentially discovers that he is a wizard. This is supposed to be the OG wizard school story. The story is about Ged going off and learning magic. I'm really excited to read this book, mostly because of how influential it is. Like, so many people love this book. I know Neil Gaiman speaks very highly of Ursula K. Le Guin's work. Actually, I've read a couple of short stories by her, but the one that sticks out the most is The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas, and it was really interesting and beautiful, just a strange little short story, and that really made me intrigued about Ursula K. Le Guin's work. Book number 3 on this list is an ebook, which I bought maybe 7 months ago, that I read the first few pages of, that I'm really excited to keep reading but have not kept reading yet, and it is Little Friend by Donna Tartt. This is the last of her novels that I have not read yet. I've read The Secret History, which I loved. I read The Goldfinch, which I loved. This story has a bit of a different vibe. From memory, The Secret History and The Goldfinch are both written in the first person, and they're about male protagonists, but this book is written in the third person, and it's about a female protagonist in the southern states of America, and it is about a murder. Let me pull up the bio. The setting is Alexandria, Mississippi, where one Mother's Day, a little boy named Robin Cleve Dufresne, I feel like that's Dufresne, and I feel like I know that because of studying Shawshank when I was in year 11, was found hanging from a tree in his parents' yard. 12 years later, Robin's murder is still unsolved. His family remains devastated, so it is that Robin's sister Harriet, unnervingly bright, insufferably determined, and unduly influenced by the fiction of Kipling and Robert Louis Stevenson. Nice reference here. Sets out to unmask his killer. I'm pretty sure this book is way less popular than The Secret History or The Goldfinch. I never hear anyone speak about this particular book. I'm not going in expecting it to be as good as those other books just because it never gets spoken about. However, I'm really excited to read it. I love Donna Tartt's writing. I think she is such a talented human being, and I'm really excited to read this book. Again, I think it's going to be a good book to read around October and the spooky season, because I'm getting the vibe that it's like a southern gothic, sort of in the vein of maybe perhaps The Ballad of the Sad Cafe. Book number 4 on this list is The Golden Age of Piracy by David Head, or David Head, not really sure, it's one or the other. This is a book that I put on my TBR quite a while ago. At this point, it's been a while since I've read a good non-fiction history book like this, and the reason why I want to read this book is mostly because I'm very interested in pirates, and I have been for an extremely long time. Like, I grew up really loving the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. movies, I've always really loved the sort of romanticized, almost cartoonish idea of like piracy and sailing the seven seas during that time. And I find the dichotomy between this romanticized version of piracy that's like swashbuckling and fun and looks like a great time, compared with the horrors of what it actually would have been, you know, during this time, the nature of what was going on in the world with what people were doing to other people. Like, there's a lot of really dark stuff around here, around piracy. I find that contrast really interesting. And honestly as well, my interest in pirates is probably helped along by the fact that I love One Piece. Like, I have been reading slash watching this manga slash anime since about 2014, I'm going to say. I got up to date with the anime at the end of 2016, around the time of the Dressrosa arc ending, and then I've been reading the manga ever since, and I'm currently up to date, and the story's really, really good at the moment. The manga's in a really good spot, and just because of One Piece, because I was really interested in pirates as a kid, find this time incredibly fascinating. And this particular book is the book that I found with the best ratings, and I really want to have a realistic look at what pirates were like and what piracy was like. I've been really interested in Anne Bonny the pirate. She has the same birthday as me, allegedly. I don't think anyone actually knows what day her real birthday is, but sometimes it's listed as March 8th. The pirate Anne Bonny, we have the same birthday. Her first name is my middle name. That's pretty cool to me. But yes, this is essentially my silly little interest in pirates, because I think this time is really cool and interesting, even though it, like, in actuality was like super dark. Before we move on to the rest of the books on this list, I just wanted to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is a website builder which allows people to create interesting, dynamic, and beautiful websites with ease. My website was made through Squarespace, as many of you know. The process to set up my site was so easy and convenient. I couldn't believe how quickly I got everything working and looking exactly how I wanted. In addition to loads of wonderful templates and lovely e-commerce features, Squarespace also has great analytical tools so you can gain powerful insights into who is visiting your site and how they interact with the things that you make. If you're looking to make a website, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ChristyAnnJones to save 10% off your purchase of a website or domain. Book number 5 is Deep Light by Frances Hardinge. This is a book that I showed in a vlog pretty recently because it arrived like a couple days before I filmed that vlog. I still can't get over how pretty this book is. Like, just the cover. This is such an A+ cover. It's so stunning. The colors, the illustrations, the way it's drawn, the little metallic-y bits. I love this cover of this book. But more importantly, the contents of the book is an electrifying story about a friendship as dark and dangerous as the ocean and a journey as treacherous as the gods themselves. This is a middle grade story about the ocean and a little adventure that goes on, and I honestly don't know very much more about this book than that. I'm really interested in the ocean. I love deep sea creatures. You guys have probably noticed by now, I'm not sure, that the end screen for my videos has jellyfish. I love jellyfish. they're so alien and interesting, and I think they're really graceful, and I think I've been interested in them since I was really little when I watched Finding Nemo for the first time, and I was like, what, you can bounce on them? But also the fact that in Australia we have like really dangerous jellyfish, like box jellyfish, and you have to be really careful of them. I think the ocean is terrifying and beautiful and so enthralling and interesting. You know, we've explored so little of the ocean. Sorry, I was just looking at a plane, getting distracted, and I really want to read this book. Oh, I forgot to put a book on this list. God damn it, this now is gonna be 13 books every single time. Where is he? Brings me to the other book I actually wanted to put on this list and almost forgot. This is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. I got this Penguin cloth-bound classics edition, which is so stunning and so lovely. I love that the jellyfish are just a little bit fluorescent. Sorry, these are now together. This is now book number 5 and 6. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is another classic. It is about a man who's gone searching for a sea monster, I believe. There's a submarine. Most of this story I know from the ride at Tōkyō Disney Sea, which was not nearly as good as the Journey to the Center of the Earth ride. Regardless, I've wanted to read this book for a very long time, so this is also on my list. These are thematically linked, which is why they're now sitting together. Next book on this list is Before Your Memory Fades by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is the most recent book by the author who wrote Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which I read a few years ago and really very much enjoyed. Now that the borders are open, sorry, I'm gonna put this down before I spill everything. Now that the borders are open to Japan and we're gonna be going going back really soon. I am starting to get back into really avidly reading Japanese literature. I really want to read a lot, and I also, oh, do I put that book on this list as well? Yes, I will. Okay, we'll talk about that book in a sec. Oh, I have such a problem with doing this. Every time I film, I can't whittle down the things I want to talk about. Now that we're going back to Japan, I'm really excited to be getting back into Japanese literature, and I really loved the vibe and tone of Before the Coffee Gets Cold. In northern Japan, overlooking the spectacular view Hakodate Port has to offer, Cafe Donna Donna has been serving carefully brewed coffee for more than 100 years, but this coffee shop offers its customers a unique experience, the chance to travel back in time. So this is linked to Before the Coffee Gets Cold and the second book, which is Tales from the Cafe. I have been to Hakodate actually. It is on the way between Tōkyō and Sapporo. We stayed there for a night and it was quite snowy and really pretty. I really loved the first book. I haven't read the second book yet, so I better check whether or not this is an actual sequel or whether it's just like in the same vibe, but you can read the books out of order. I do need to double check that. I've just realized as I've been reading. In which case, if you do need to have read the second book, I will also be reading the second book, which is Tales from the Cafe. So we can just chuck that book on this list as well. And then moving along, the book that I was about to mention, which I don't know if I'm going to get to before the end of this year, but I really want to, is 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. It has been a long time since I have last read a Haruki Murakami novel, and I feel like I'm ready. I'm ready to be traumatized again. I'm ready to dive in and to experience the labyrinthine beauty of his writing. 1Q84 is probably the next best well-known of his novels that I haven't actually read yet. It is about a young woman who essentially stumbles onto a secret society in Tokyo. She starts to feel like the fabric of reality pull away, and there's all these conspiracies going on. And knowing Haruki Murakami, there's probably going to be a whole bunch of random cats walking around, jazz bars, precocious teenagers. I have been wanting to read this book for years now, so I'm hoping that I get to it. I'm not confident on this one. I feel like the rest of these books I could conceivably see me finishing, but this particular book I'm a little bit intimidated by just because I know how long it takes me to read his books generally. So it is on this list. If I don't get to it, I'm not going to beat myself up about it because I know his books can be a bit of a big task. The next book on this list is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. I think this book was on my TBR video at the beginning of this year. I still haven't gotten to it yet. Last year was the very first time I ever read a romance novel, and it's not my usual genre. Like, I have not read very many romance novels. I don't tend to go in for them, but I'm still in the process of trying to widen my book reading horizons, and I know that this series is really well loved. Chloe Brown is a chronically ill computer geek with a goal, a plan, and a list. After almost but not quite dying, she comes up with 6 directives to help her get a life, and she's already completed the first, finally moving out of her glamorous family's mansion. Oh, that must be nice. The next items: enjoy a drunken night out, ride a motorcycle, go camping, and other things as well as that. It's a romance novel, so there's going to be romance in the story. Again, on my list because it's really well rated, because people love the series, and I really am trying to keep broadening my reading horizons. So I'm gonna read this book. Number 8, well, not technically number 8, I think we're closer to number 10 or 11. I've lost count at this point. Wise Children by Angela Carter. I also mentioned this one in the same vlog where I mentioned Deep Light, because those 2 books arrived at the same time. This is the last Angela Carter book that I'm really excited to get to out of all of her books. I'm slowly making my way through all of Angela Carter's novels. This is the one that was published pretty soon before she died. I think maybe a year or 2 years before she died. And it is about these 2 twin sisters who are elderly, who used to be performers. I remember watching in a documentary that Angela Carter spoke about this book as performance, and being particularly a theatre performer as being a metaphor for being a woman and having to perform within society, having to play a role. I'm really excited to read something by her more in line with Nights at the Circus, because the last book I read by her was The Strange Desire Machines of Dr. Hoffman, and I did not enjoy that story. I enjoyed it from a technical perspective. I enjoyed it from a literary perspective. I think it is groundbreaking in terms of creativity. It's world building. I spoke about it in my world building video. However, there is a lot of sexual violence in that book, and it really put me off. This book, however, I'm pretty sure doesn't have any of that in it, so I'm really looking forward to it. I love Angela Carter's writing. I've read the first 2 pages of this, and so far it's beautifully written. I love the Cockney voice of this South London actress who's in her like 80s, I believe. I'm really excited to finish it. Okay, this one is by Elif Shafak, and this is The Bastard of Istanbul. I have loved Constantinople / Istanbul for a really long time now, as you guys know. I've read and reread Ghost Empire a number of times, and I am really interested in this city, and so I want to read more literature set in this city. This particular one, however, maybe wasn't the best choice. Even though Istanbul is on the front cover, I think this one is set between Istanbul in Turkey and the United States, about this family. As I've mentioned, I wanted to read more books set in Istanbul. I think this is a really interesting one. This one has really high ratings, and so that's why I picked it. The next book I want to speak about is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. The reason why this book is on my TBR is because I absolutely loved the 5th season series. It is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. I think it is a massive triumph in terms of connecting fantasy with science fiction. I think the world building is absolutely amazing. I think the creativity of the story, how unique it is, all of these things make the 5th season, sorry, the Broken Earth series really remarkable, and I recommend these books so much. The City We Became, however, is a modern day story set in New York City. Cities have souls and they are actually alive. This book hasn't gotten nearly as positive reviews as the Broken Earth trilogy. I think people didn't enjoy it as much as that series. Like, that series is like really well loved. However, I still really want to read The City We Became. I think N.K. Jemisin is such a talented author. I think she is so incredibly remarkable, and so I definitely want to pick up this book and check it out. The second to last book on this list is The Disaster Tourist by Yoon Ko-eun. This book is a eco-thriller, actually. I've never read an eco-thriller before, as I mentioned. I'm still really trying to read outside my comfort zone, hence why there's a romance book on this list. I don't tend to read very many thrillers, and this particular one is a story where the premise of the book really grabbed me. So this is a story about a young woman who's living in Korea. She becomes harassed by her bosses above her, and she works for a tourism company where she sells packages to people where they can go and experience natural disasters, and she experiences firsthand what these disaster tour packages are actually like. I think this concept of like grief tourism is really interesting, because when we look at tourism, we look at the ethics of tourism, there are some holidays that are not as ethical as other holidays. You know, there's been a really big conversation happening for quite a number of years now around the ethics of voluntourism, for example, where rich and fortunate people go to developing nations with companies that aren't always helpful to the local people of those nations. And so this book more specifically looks at ecotourism. The book is only 145 pages long, and I'm really excited to read it because I don't know what twists and turns it's going to take. And then the final book on this list. So how many books did we end up with? Jekyll and Hyde, Earthsea. I think that's 15 books. So this book is number 15. There's only supposed to be 12 on this list, but here we go. Number 15 on this list is Matilda by Roald Dahl. I don't know if I've read this book before. I've watched the film to absolute death. I loved this film when I was a kid. I remember having read quite a number of Roald Dahl's books when I was little. I particularly remember reading The Twits. I don't remember the specifics of what I did actually read because I borrowed them all from my school library. I really do want to read Matilda though, particularly because I love this film. I think it's so magical. It's a really big comfort film for me, and I'd love to get a copy of Matilda, the actual book, and read it. If you don't know the story of Matilda, it's about a young girl and she has telekinetic powers. Her family aren't very kind to her. They're quite neglectful to her, and she's really smart and really clever, and she ends up going to this school where her teacher, Miss Honey, realizes that she has these special abilities, and Miss Honey is really lovely to her, and it's about her misadventures at the school with like the evil principal. And I love Matilda so much. I think it's so special and wonderful. I think I might have read it when I was really little, but I don't remember reading it, so I'd love to grab a copy and read it. And that is the final book on this list of books that I really want to read before the end of 2022. Thank you so very much to everyone over on Patreon for supporting my videos and the things that I make and making these videos possible. Take care everyone, happy reading, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.